Dear audiences, my name is Sanne Håby Nielsen and I am the director of the Nordiska Museum here in Stockholm, or styresman as the correct Swedish title is. It is my great pleasure to warmly welcome you to the panel discussion tonight, digital panel discussion, about a subject which has been at the core of our activities for more than 5 years here at the Nordiska Museum, namely how do you create a big exhibition on a subject which is solemn and severe and very, very important, namely the situation in the Arctic region in the light of the climate changes and how this affects both the people, the 4 million people living in the Arctic region, but also all other people, all the rest of us, not actually living in that region. How do you create a big exhibition on that subject? How do you make people involved in that subject? How do you make them so involved that they actually come over to the Nordic Museum and actually pay to see the exhibition to get involved? And how do you ensure that this exhibition does reach out to all segments of society? How do you do that? That has been our challenge for more than 5 years, and we have had especially two challenges that we have been focusing on. One challenge has been to ensure a high level of multidisciplinary academic approaches to a very complex situation, and that has been our guest professor, Lotta Gustafsson-Reinius. It has been very much her challenge, and in another panel discussion, Lotta presented her result in this book that I am showing you here, and you can find that panel discussion also on our homepage. Now tonight is dealing with the second huge challenge. How do you create such an exhibition? I've had the great pleasure to follow this project for 5 years, and I can assure you that it is a project that has engaged everyone at the Nordiska Museum. And as I just said, it has also engaged many experts outside the museum, and it has engaged artists, and that's what we are going also very much to focus on tonight in the panel discussion. And again, before I end my introduction, let me tell you that it has been maybe one of the really, really big challenges has been how can you not only create the exhibition, but actually create it in this museum, an old museum from 1900, early 20th century, and in a big hall. How do you do that? It is an in-house production, and so everything you see in this exhibition is produced by people here at the Nordiska Museum in collaboration with artists and other significant teams. You will hear more about that in the discussion, and I'm now very happy to hand over to the moderator for tonight, Sofia.
Thank you, Sanne, for that introduction and welcoming. My name is Sofia Rickberg. I will be your moderator tonight. I'm very honored to have the opportunity to talk with all of you and with the artists and designers and producers behind the exhibition Arktis, medan, isen, smälter. I work for the Swedish Research Council Formas, but I also have a background in polar research communication. We've been planning this talk since, I don't know, early autumn, and we were supposed to do it in October. But here we are in December, and we're making it online instead of live. So here with me on screens, I have Matti Shevchenko Sandin, exhibition producer. I have Sofia Hedman and Anastasya Martynova, the artist and designer duo Museet. Very welcome. You are live from your home, And where are you now? Where is your home now? Last time we talked, you were in Barcelona, in Spain.
Yeah, we just moved back to Sweden, so relocated our studio to Stockholm.
Nice, welcome. And we also have Anastasya Martynova, artist, from your home in London. How is London?
Chilly.
Chilly. Chilly. It's dark and chilly here in Stockholm too. I think we have to gather around Matti's cozy fire, all of us. That would be a nice way to spend the evening. Later on, you will also see the Swedish dance company Kullberg do their interpretation of the exhibition in a pre-recorded performance. Don't miss that. Before we introduce you a little bit further, we would like to give you a quick walkthrough of the exhibition through a film. And it's a great way for those of you who haven't seen it, but of course you will see it in 2021 when it will still be open, to just get a touch of what it's like. And it's also an opportunity for those of you who have seen it to get a bit of a freshen up or recap. Maybe you will notice some new details in it. I do it every time. I've seen it 3 times already. So here it is. A quick walkthrough of the exhibition Arktis, medan isen smälter, the Arctic while the ice is melting. Enjoy. Thank you. That was a little walkthrough of the exhibition. Let's start with a little introduction of all of you. What was your role and what did you do in this production? Matti, would you like to go first? What did you do?
I was the producer of the exhibition part of the project, so yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Brief. And Sofia Hedman, what was your role in this?
Yes, I worked with exhibition design, and I also worked a lot with concept design for exhibition design.
And Serge?
Yes, I also co-designed the exhibition and also the graphics.
Thank you. And Anastasya, what did you do?
So I contributed 3 special commissions in collaborations with the museet.
Thank you. And I think we need to set the background of this a little bit. But also I'm very curious, before we do that, how was your relation to the Arctic before you started working with this? And how is it now? So maybe Serge, would you like to start?
Well, at the beginning of the process, I didn't know so much about the Arctic, and so it was very interesting research process. Just from the start, I didn't know that there were 4 million people that live in the Arctic Circle, and I didn't understand the complexity of how climate change is affecting their lives and how fast things are changing. I think that was the main sort of initial thing that we quickly discovered. And then from there on in, it was just more and more insights that informed our design.
Sofia, what about you? Had you been to the Arctic?
No, I never been. And right now, after doing the research, we're trying to travel less and less, and I don't think we will go there until there's a sustainable way of getting there. But yeah, it was the same for me. I didn't realize how little understanding I had for it. And also, I think I didn't realize the urgency of the crisis. It's actually the first time I woke up in the night and I couldn't sleep because I felt we really have to do something and realize how urgent it is, how important. And you can feel it, but you can really, really feel it. And that's when that happened.
And Matti, what about you? Maybe you had some dealings with the Arctic before in your work at the Nordiska museet.
Yes, I've been to Laponia and Iceland and so on. So I've seen the beauty of the landscape and met very nice people and so on, and ate nice food and had a good holiday. But when, as Sofia said, when we got in contact with the research and the whole process around the exhibition, my view on it deepened in a way, and I saw also the importance and the importance of the history that was going away with the ice, and also how people didn't really have the same possibilities up there now because of the ice melting. So yeah.
Thank you. And Anastasya, what about you? What is your perception of the Arctic before and now?
Well, to be honest, I too had quite an abstract idea of the Arctic previously, and working on this exhibition has demystified it to some extent for me. But I think, like Sofia, my biggest takeaway is the urgency to act, to make changes now to our lifestyle in terms of the climate change. And just, it was quite a shock to see just how quickly the ice is melting. So I think, yeah, I'm with Sofia in the same kind of mindset now.
Thank you. Let's move on to talk a little bit more about the work and the cooperation between the scholars that were the base of this exhibition in a way. Matti, would you like to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that was Lotten Gustafsson-Reinius, the Hallwylska professor at Nordiska museet, put together a long. She worked for almost 2 years before me. We're doing taking new ideas and new research, and had seminars around both objects and research in the museum to look at our collections from the Arctic in a new light. And from that, it sprung a lot of ideas about going there to make documentaries, and both in the ice melting situation, but also from everyday people living there, and to see if there were more knowledge to find, and it was, of course. So she arranged a big circle of universities and national museums around the Nordic countries, and had these kind of fantastic roundtable discussions to see different perspectives. And I came in quite late into it, so it was a structure around it that was quite amazing to work with and to listen to. And that everything of that is in the catalog that came out this summer. So, well, ask me something more about it. It was, it was mind-blowing, partly because you could finally see our objects in a different light. Instead of just being historic objects from the Arctic region, we could see how people have used their intelligence to survive and have a comfortable life up in quite tricky climate, so to speak. So it was more of a learning process for the museum to take in all these different perspectives.
Thank you. And this is the catalog Matti was talking about. It's an anthology, and you can buy it here at the museum or in web shops that sells books. Arktiska spår, it's impressive. Read it, look at it, feel it, it's heavy. I think we should get a little closer to the exhibition itself right now and talk about the elephant in the room, or that is like the iceberg, the melting ice that is in the great hall of the museum. It's like a main body, and it has a crack in it, divides the ice in two. What was the idea behind that? What does it mean, Matti?
Well, it's not my idea, it was Sia's, but I can tell you the process around it, because it was very interesting and fun to work with. We realized quickly that we are a museum about culture and history, and people always leave behind objects that are arts and crafts behind them to tell a story for the future or to the next person. So we realized we had to have these really good designers, artists to look at the material before we started. And that's how we ended up in Museet and started to talk about, and they kind of interviewed me every Monday for a couple of hours. And during the week, I collected more interesting things from the researchers or the curators at the museum, or there could be conservators at the museum as well. And then I talked to them a little bit more, and boom, we got this big iceberg with a crack in it, because they, from what I think, they heard about all the different cracks in both in history between now and then, and between human and animal, and in the cracks in the research sometimes, that's a different thing. And so it was more like a sculpture of our ideas around an iceberg, and not an iceberg in itself. So that's my idea about it.
Beautiful. yeah, this crack brings us into the exhibition that had different rooms, and every room tells us a different story or has a different perspective on the Arctic, and all the light and the texts and the objects and projections and the artworks, everything comes together in a kind of a harmony. But it's also, as it often is in museums, you also mentioned that, Matti, and we could see in the film that there are a lot of objects in here. So Sofia and Serge, when you were presented with all these objects, how did you navigate around them? How did they speak to you, and how did you use them in your work?
Well, there are so many clever objects, most of them made to aid the survival in very harsh conditions. For example, like a special straw that allows you to drink ice water, or special sun and snow glasses, or a wooden map that you can read where you are just using touch instead of sight. So when we encountered these objects, it was really inspirational for us in terms of the design and how it really challenged us to create kind of a dynamic presentation of these objects, because they really are very well dynamic, and they're so ingenious in a way, how they invented them, and also made them using very few resources. And that goes back to also, we learned how in the Arctic they very much had a system, a circular economy system. So they reused any scraps, leftovers of things, and everything. Almost nothing was wasted.
And that is a method you have kind of adapted or into this. I know you worked a lot with sustainability, and I think it in some ways emphasizes one of the main messages of this exhibition, that the Arctic is melting due to our lifestyle. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about your work with the circular economy and sustainability in this production? Sofia?
Yeah, no, I think it somehow, with this exhibition too, I think it enhanced like the importance of thinking circular. And with the exhibition design, it enhanced the need of like rethinking the production of exhibitions, and also to use as much recycled materials for the exhibition design. And it comes to like everything from electronics to the build, and also how we design it to kind of try to use big sheets that easily can be reused afterwards, and also use natural materials such as wood or hay, which is a very sustainable material. So it goes into different parts, but I think normally in museum productions things get made and then thrown away, but to kind of enhance this circular way of thinking, to reuse as much of materials as possible afterwards.
And when we talked before, you mentioned a new collaboration in Stockholm with Liljevalchs. What was that? Some kind of a reuse of material?
Yes, they're looking into starting up a magazine where museums go together and leave the old exhibition design that others then can recycle and reuse. And I think this kind of really big organization is really amazing for us as designers, also to have a place where we can go and find old material that can be reused. There's a lot of pressure also on designers to do all the research. I mean, if you're doing research about these things, when it comes to materials, you always have to Google it everywhere. And I think that there's been some structures missing, both a place where you can go to find the material, and also like one website that guides you. Yeah, a database where you can find these and these materials are good. You have these places where you can buy it, to make it easier for everyone to do sustainable production. But it's also something that probably the state should go in and kind of organize to make it easier for everyone, all artists and designers and architects.
Mm. Anastasya, you were also very much involved in the recycling business. For example, this beautiful T-shirt I'm wearing, I know. Tell us a little bit more about your view on that.
In my own work, I try to use sustainable materials as much as possible. I think it's really great that more options are available for artists to use biodegradable materials now and alternatives. So in the hay installation that I did in collaboration with museet, we used straw, and I can tell you a little bit about that. And so the inspiration behind these formations came from looking at how hay is used by people in the southern parts of the Arctic Circle, as obviously as a sustainable and eco-friendly building material. And it also represents this small-scale circular way of life, as Surgeon Sofia mentioned, where very little goes to waste. And if you're looking in the gallery, there you have the glistening white walls, which represent the glistening snow, which is usually present with the hay. And the hay itself, I formed into these abstract, giant snake-like shapes, which weave in and around the gallery. And yes, quite sort of dominant within the space. And they represent a natural resource fighting against the next gallery, which is the oil section, which represents the large-scale resource extraction. And so basically this room highlights the importance of using natural materials, and also when you're in there, there's quite a strong smell of the hay, which I think really adds to the sort of multi-sensory experience. Yes, I think it shows us that something as simple as hay can be a powerful resource.
Yeah, you told us a little bit about the hay room. That has like a certain smell. Even it's very. It's sensoric in a way. One room it's in the beginning of the exhibition is the ice room. It's called In the Ice, and it's about what is hidden in the ice, what we can find there if we look closely. And it has a lot of objects, but it's also in a way a room that makes you think a lot about what can be hidden. It's like new roots. It's like fossil fuel. It can be plants and animals that has been dead for thousands and thousands of years. But it also makes me think, at least on bacteria and viruses, like the Spanish flu, a pandemic that crossed the globe in 1918. Some people, a couple of years back, they found the virus still in bodies buried in the Arctic Canada. And things like this could be anthrax, could be other kinds of dangerous things, toxins like mercury. When the permafrost and the ice melts, things like this gets released. The dangerous things hidden in the ice can be released into our modern world, or our world of today. It's kind of thrilling. I think it's exciting. Matti, you know a little bit more about these objects in the boxes in the ice room. Tell us.
Well, to start with, it's reuse everything, and we put them in resin. And it was an interesting discussion. We had the ice archive from the beginning, and we didn't really know what to put in it. So it was a lot of discussion with museet. And as you know, realize now, this group are quite fantastic to work with, because you throw out an idea and you get two back or a bigger, better one back. So, well, at least we wanted to tell different aspects of what's hidden in the ice. You could have
I can also add
history
that the
are
ice
hidden in the ice, in the small ice bubbles. And you also have myths. It's the importance. People have humanized the ice for centuries and thousands of years to try to explain it. So we also have that in the ice. And then it's of course, as you already spoke about, the dangers in the ice. Whatever we put in the ice will now could melt and destroy us again. So it's a sort of biblical proportions, this ice melting in different ways. But there's also wonderful things that humans like under the ice. It's rubies, it's gas and oil and gold and big diamonds. So we try to look at it from different perspectives. What's in there? Why do we go there? What do we try to find? And what are we going to lose? And also the dangers with the ice melting. And we had I remember when I got the sketches to that wall, because we were not really happy to have a curved wall because it's really hard to build them. But then the carpenters at the museum was already totally in love with musea, so they just refused me to change anything, they said. We call it the musea experience or the musea effect. I never seen a thing like this. So they started to build that curved wall, and they ordered the boxes to put on the wall. I couldn't really grasp it because there was so much things happening, and it was a very intense project for basically 18 months for me. So when we made these art installations with different things in resin, and we put it up, and we had discussions about what kind of color. I was a bit off tune, so to speak, in that discussion because we were doing so much else. And then one night, Hasse, who did the lighting, put up the required lighting systems for these boxes. It was supposed to be a clear light just going down the boxes. And we put in one of these, I think it was the one with the mammoth. And Hasse spread some crystals around them. And we saw this fantastic spectra on the wall and the shadows on the floor. And we just realized that, of course, they thought of this. It's the Anthropocene, or the human footprint becomes these artful shadows or light reflects on the floor. And also you see the eyes with all the spectra from the crystals. So it was a kind of a metaphysical kind of experience. And we just realized that we were dealing with something bigger than ourselves, and we were creating something that was so respectful for the cultures up in the Arctic, and very contemporary art and design, and something that would affect people in different layers. So it was a fantastic moment when we finally got up these lights after weeks of argument. And it kind of just opened the door for the rest of the art installations in the exhibition. Nobody ever complained after that, basically.
What a beautiful story. Speaking of the exhibit of objects and how you create like a room or space for objects, how do you do that, Sofia and Serge? What are your thoughts and methods behind your work when it comes to this exhibition?
Well, it's always the case that every object is selected to tell a specific angle of a story. So it's really important to give each object its own space. When we work, we try to create a different atmosphere or feeling in each theme. and we also try to direct the visitor to take in the objects from a particular perspective. And then we like to incorporate sounds and graphics into the whole mix to create the right atmosphere. Yeah, I think that's the kind of...
I mean, I think like for us, it was so valuable to sit with Matti every week and learn and trying to really grasp what his and the creatorial teams, like their vision of it all. And then like how they visualize the cracks in the different themes and
the connections between the objects and the stories, because everything is of course connected.
I mean, making an exhibition is such a huge group work together, and it's like you're painting this amazing, like painting together, and it's like it's a lot of it's everybody's work is as important. And I think, yeah.
Sorry.
No?
Go on.
You do.
No, I was going to say, sometimes everything clicks into place during the actual installation phase, so right at the end.
But it's also it clicks in the beginning.
Yeah,
That's
sometimes.
When we had the first meeting with the museum, and it's like the curatorial group, Matti and the technicians, and also the conservators, it just like it was a really good click there that kind of set us off too.
Yeah, I meant specifically with certain objects in terms of how they're displayed. Some things you have to just feel in the space and how you can plan very thoroughly and kind of calculate everything. But sometimes when you see everything on site in real life, you have to make small adjustments, and then hopefully everything sits just right. We just carry on working until it feels
everyone
good.
is happy.
Yeah, it's a rigorous work. But Matti, how many people were involved really in this? And it doesn't sound like there are any quick fixes really, and it's very meticulous, everything. You told me something about quick fixes before. Do you remember?
No.
That the millimeters made a difference?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Would you like to tell us a story?
Yeah, it was also apart from the carpenters and the technicians at the museum that sometimes when you're a producer, you have the budget and you have people to answer to, and you have to fix something quick, just do it. And close is close enough. But we tried to do this one time, and we didn't do it again, I think. Tried to change something so it just worked with the budget and time schedule. And we realized it just fell apart because Musia and Anastasya as well works mathematical minds in a way. So everything has to be leveled in a certain way and directed in a certain way to work together, and that goes through the graphics, and it goes to the prints, and goes into the cabinets, how we display the objects, if they're flowing or not. So we had to follow this millimeter kind of thinking, and when you get it right, it's actually like a spectra. It's like a diamond. It's just you feel you are in an idea. So I hope that answers your question, but that was my experience of it. I had it at one time before, and it was in the Sistine Chapel in Rome, where you have this, everything works. And that happened in Iceberg a couple of times. So, but how many we were working there? I should have a number. I can't think of it right now, but it was basically all the technicians and carpenters and crews. It also took in electricians, carpenters from outside the museum, and all the conservators and 2 curators, and then all the people who work with around the object. So we basically everyone for a while. And everybody wanted to work with us also, and the museum teachers as well. So it was as I said before, a big learning process for the museum, how to make contemporary exhibitions about interesting and important subjects in a cultural historic museum that usually gets a bit stuffy and a bit traditional, and how we dared to take these steps into the future together with and rely so much on the designers. It was a fantastic experience.
You are sometimes, I think, confused with the Natural Museum of History. You are both big buildings, but you are not a natural museum. But there is some nature in this exhibition. Nature in itself is like an archive, and also the ice can be seen as an archive. We can trace volcanoes in it, and you can do all kinds of meteorological research. But how did you bring Arctic nature into the exhibition? Would you like to say something about that, Anastasya?
Nature. Well, I suppose there are natural elements within the tapestries that I created with Musea. So Musea asked me to create something that resonated with the Russian part of the Arctic Circle. And when I started doing research into the Nenets, I found that a common decorative element is the rose, both used in traditional scarves that you would wear to keep your head warm, as well as in textiles in the home. So I use the rose as a basis for both tapestries, and oversize the cross stitch to accent this recognizable but simple symbol. So that's one natural element that we used. And then the other commission were a series of beaded glass sculptures, also in the home gallery. And Musea asked me to create a background for a really beautiful, colorful beaded sweater from Greenland. And so I started looking into glass beads and found these really interesting blue, green, turquoise glass pebbles that I saw could reference a water-like 3D texture. So the beaded sculptures were a series of different shapes, and they referenced a bird's eye view of the terrain of Greenland. So yeah, that was the inspiration behind that.
Yeah, and it's really beautiful, that background. We heard Matti tell us before about the research behind this exhibition, and this I will show you again, the anthology that has come out from the work of many scientists involved, especially from Stockholm University, and it's all led by the Professor Lotten Gustafsson Reinius. But how would you describe your approach as designers and artists to all the knowledge that has been put into this work, and what is the relation between researchers and designers, scientific reports and the artistic work you achieved? How do all this scientific result translate into your work, art and design? Sofia and Serge, let's start with you.
Yeah. Well, in this exhibition, the science aspect is introduced by the films and texts. So our task was to try and make it as accessible as possible. So we placed the films in very prominent positions, because it's actually the films that show the contemporary life in the Arctic and what's happening there, what's happening to the landscapes and the people. So that was a very direct and
yeah, we wanted them to drive the exhibition forward.
And and it was that was the most, we thought, the most direct way to show to the visitor just very, very quickly how life is changing there and how people are living at this current time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's our responsibility also as designers to do a lot of research and listen to their research. And I think that traditionally, maybe it would be fantastic if there was more collaborations between artists and designers, like scientists, to kind of like
exchange ideas.
Exchange ideas and also push things forward, and also to kind of show, because exhibit their work in a very fun and intriguing way.
And make it that research more accessible to a larger group of people, to just to increase the awareness and just to foster more discussions, more work, more communication. So for us, the science collaboration for us was one of the most fascinating aspects of the project. But we think there's always, the more collaboration between different disciplines and industries, the better. I think that's often where you get the most exciting and results and breakthrough things happening.
You tap a little bit into my next question, because I've met polar researchers that has been on research expeditions together with artists, and the expedition often creates like a bond between people, but starting from an expedition point, these scientists and an artist has also sometimes created a joint project. And one example of that is Professor Björn Olsen, who is an expert on infectious disease. He went to Antarctica in 2001 and he studied zoonosis, I mean diseases that goes between animals to humans, and he met painter and graphic artist Mattias Fagerholm. And then they teamed up again in 2010 and made a joint exhibition about bacteria and amoebas, and it was really beautiful stuff, both scientific-wise and artistic. And then also another example is Maj-Gull Axelsson, a Swedish novelist, and she was on a scholarship on the icebreaker Oden in 2005. And there she met very experienced marine biologist, Professor Katarina Abrahamsson from Gothenburg University, and they became friends. And Maj-Gull wrote a novel about on inspiration from her trip. It's called Is och vatten, vatten och is. And when it was, she asked Katarina, who is, with all her experience, could fill in some things when it comes to the descriptions of the polar research or expedition life on board and so on. And when it was time to promote this novel, they did some of the promotion together, like, for example, on the book fair in Gothenburg. So it was really fun watching that. And that makes me think of, I mean, there are similarities, I think. I'm not a scientist, I'm not an artist, but from my perspective, I think there are similarities between the research discipline and the artist discipline. But what is that, according to you? Is it like a curiosity or just a specific mindset? And what is this? What is it that sometimes makes it easy to connect between these two disciplines? Is that something you've been thinking about, Anastasya?
I think it's a sense of curiosity and wanted to explore a subject. But also it's a similarity but a difference. I think as museets say, it's really exciting and unexpected results can come from merging different disciplines together. So I think definitely that's something that should be encouraged, and I really hope that this exhibition is a good example of the two merging well together to create something quite unusual and fresh. So certainly it's something that I'm going to explore further in my own work. But I think for any discipline, like I say, I think it's good to come out of your usual thinking. And so if you're collaborating with others with different ideas and different backgrounds, it could really be a springboard to something new and exciting.
Thank you. And Sofia and Serge, how can research be shown in the actual design? Do you have an example of that? Is it possible at all? Yeah, if you have an example of that, yeah. Is it possible? And do you have an example?
I think it kind of zippers through a little bit everywhere, hopefully. But I think for us, there was a lot of coming through the videos and texts. And I think for us is to make the text, the long text, more inviting, or like you want to stand there, you can go there many times and kind of look at the exhibition in different layers, or because it's a lot to take in. So you need to go there a few times, I think, to really get into the different subjects and the research behind.
It's very dense. There's lots of the curators compiled a lot of information, and it's up to the visitor how deep they would like to go. But it's the texts are fantastic, but also if you look at the objects themselves, I think if you look closely at how they're constructed, how they work, there's a lot of science and technology and how they are made. So that's another way of kind of exploring that aspect.
I mean, I think it's also brilliant how Matti did with like selecting an artist, writing the text. So the text themselves becomes almost, when I read them the first time, it's like poems. I just like totally sucked into it. And that is very much part of the experience too. And maybe not that common within the exhibition as I see it. Like it's really like take you on another journey too.
Yeah, so the texts are just as much part of the whole experience as the visual aspects. So it's such a key component, and in this exhibition it's particularly fantastic.
One thing that was discussed during the release of the anthology a couple of weeks ago was the challenge of capturing a constantly changing Arctic into a museum, which is in a way a time-conserving institution. Matti, have you been dealing with this in the process?
Oh, tough question. Well, it came a lot from Lotten's work with. We have some documentaries in the exhibition that came out from her research colleagues that said you must go and watch what's happening in the Arctic. So we sent this wonderful Camilla Andersen to photograph everything together with our crew. So we're kind of preserving the moment around this, and also the feelings around it. Sometimes when you look at the objects, it's really hard to see if they have any feelings around it. You have to make that up or assume. But in this case, when we could do the documentaries together with the researchers, we could really grasp the moment in a way. I don't know if that answers your question, but
I think in a way. Yeah.
So it was an interesting process to use the digital era in a way to collect things without taking them from the Arctic, which is usually what's been done before, that you collect things or stones or animals and bring them down from the Arctic. Now it could stay, you could just film it.
Yeah, we're starting to wrap things up here a little bit. it seems to me from what I hear and what you've been describing, it's like it was almost like a family ambiance during this process. You all smile. Do you agree?
Yes, we even had a baby.
My own small experience from polar research exhibitions is like you come together like as a tribe, and you're very much aware that this unique constellation of people will never be again. I mean, it's a bit sad when you go out of that bubble and it takes a couple of weeks or so to adjust to your normal reality. This moment can never be recreated. And how did you feel after the opening, and how is it to revisit your work now? I mean, you haven't been able to go here due to the pandemic, but what are your thoughts on this? Anastasya, you could go first.
Well, it's certainly true that we've all become good friends, and it's really quite amazing, the team that came together. I feel really privileged to have been part of it. But I don't feel sad. I feel like now we've found each other, there's going to be more projects, more exciting ideas realized. So I feel like this is just the start. But certainly it's really nice to revisit it, and I'm really glad that people are enjoying the exhibition. It's a shame that it's closed for a bit, but now we're doing this, and there's other ways to see the exhibition and get the book as well. Yeah, no, it's been a really great experience. I feel like we've all taken something from it, and yeah, I've only got positive things to say.
What about you, Matti?
Well, it's I see it quite often since I work in the museum, but it was yeah, after exhibition I was quite exhausted, but the process is fantastic to be in. So I'm more of a builder than a finisher anyway. So yes, I would like to work again in this very nice fluidity. I don't know. It was like working in water in a way, but I had the hard stuff with the from the museum and the more softer stuff from Lucia and Anastasya. So we had a fantastic work. And now when I go down and see it from time to time, I still think it's fantastic and very, very beautiful. And I find something new in it every time. And it amazes me how much we did and how clear it is in a way. And people still come there and when it's open and watch the exhibition, and everybody goes away with a kind of looking meditative in a way. They're not happy or sad, or we made them start to think, and that's a good grade for the exhibition, I think.
Definitely. So what about you, Musea? Would you have done something differently now? It's more than a year after the opening of the exhibition, and the world has moved on and take new turns that we weren't at all aware of that it could take back then. So would you, is there anything else you would have done? Would you?
I mean, looking at it now today, and you go through it on the video, is pretty amazing. I mean, after you do something, you can kind of get stuck in the things that it wasn't really working. But now when you see it, it's quite amazing to see it again. I get quite happy. I mean, I think like maybe we would, because we're more in a crisis now than it was a year ago. So maybe if we put a little bit like more that feeling inside and really stress people out. But but I think like yeah, I'm happy, and it was an amazing. I think Anastasya and Matti put it really well. Like it was an amazing team to work with, and I also see it as like it's a new beginning.
Yeah, it's really unusual where everyone. It felt like everyone on the team really tried to make the best of what they could, everything. So it was really, everyone was kind of aiming for the same result, which is, in our experience, it's not always the case on a project. So that was a real delight for us. And now
it's also so relevant, the subject of it. Sorry, Matti.
No, I was just, we had two other artists as well, Jesper Wachtmeister and David Giese, who did some of the projections, or all the projections. And they kind of linked into the big idea very easily. It wasn't any big discussions, because usually when you bring in an artist late into the project, it could be, but I think it really worked. We were quite surprised, because we got the lungs of the iceberg and the cracks, and you know, they kind of understood what we were looking for in a time that we were very stressed about it. So no, it was a great project.
Thank you. I have one last quick question for each and every one of you. What is your favorite object, and what object shouldn't a visitor miss? You go first, Anastasya.
Oh gosh,
sorry.
There's so many great things in there. I really liked the wood maps.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think the things that show the ingenuity and the sort of the resilience of the people living in that kind of harsh climate. I found those objects really interesting. Probably that, but also as a wood carver, obviously anything wood related excites me. So probably that's also part of the reason.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Serge, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, there are lots, but I think for some reason, the object that really impressed me in its ingenuity were there's some skis with a fur on the bottom. So when you can go up a hill, because the fur creates like friction with the ice. So I thought that was a really smart solution. I've never seen that before. So yeah, but there are lots of other objects, but for some reason that one stood out.
Yeah. And your favorite object, Sofia, what is it?
No, that's the thing. There's so many like really, really interesting ideas and like things that we should learn from. But then I also really love Camilla's videos, and I think like to understand the exhibition, you really have to like take time and look at the videos where the people who's actually living there telling their story, and they're really well made.
Yeah.
Yeah, capturing the modern Arctic in a way. Matti, your last recommendation.
I go for the glamour then, and it's the pearl colors from Greenland, the glass bead ones. Connects very well to Anastasya's work, and I found them very interesting because it was a little pearl that you couldn't make in Greenland, because they don't have any extra wood to burn to make the heat to create glass. So it was imported from either Italy, Venice, or Amsterdam and Holland, and traded. So it was and made into these beautiful, very expensive colors in Greenland, and they sold it for furs that were very expensive in the south part of Europe. And it kind of tells a story of how cultures comes together and take the best from each other and create something new. So they are not only to look good, they tell a totally different story of globalization and knowledge about different places and cultures, of course. So yeah, they are my favorites this week.
Thank you so much. Thank you, all four of you, for participating in this conversation. It's been so much fun and interesting to be a little part of your big process. And thank you to all of you at home for watching this webcast. The exhibition will stay on display on 2021, so don't miss a wonderful opportunity to get a closer look on the beautiful and transforming Arctic that affects us all. If you have further questions on the content of this program, this discussion, please send them to program@nordiskamuseet.se, program@nordiskamuseet.se email. So now it is time to enjoy another artistic interpretation of the Arctic, but this is also an interpretation of the exhibition about the Arctic. So it's the Swedish dance company Cullberg who has been dancing within the expedition. So enjoy this, and thank you for watching, and goodbye.